The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution with which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination, other than for the purpose of education or information, without the expressed written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited. Welcome back to the Nova Society, the space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by my partner in crime, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and together we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines and history. The big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what our guests and listeners have for us today. So today, the Nova Society is pleased to have on Dr. Peter Solomon. Peter is a scientist, educator, successful entrepreneur, and author. His current mission is to warn the next generation about the threats posed by unchecked science and technology. He's sounding the alarm about the potential tyranny of technology through his novels, 100 Years to Extinction and the sequel, 12 Years to AI Singularity. Both these books are available at Amazon.com and at Barnes & Noble, and 12 Years to AI Singularity is also available on audiobooks. 100 Years to Extinction will be out on audiobook very shortly. If you want to learn more about Peter's work, go to 100yearstoextinction.com and check it out. We're looking forward to a very fascinating topic. Welcome, Peter. So today we're going to be welcoming in Peter Solomon, who has written a couple of books about AI based on some of the ideas that Stephen Hawking's had and problems that AI can cause, and pretty much how this could be the zombie apocalypse of technology taking over mankind. And it's very interesting. I was reading some of your book, Peter. I didn't get through the whole thing. Extremely interesting, but it does present us with it. It's not dystopian and like a Bradbury. It just doesn't feel that dystopian, but it does feel like, wow, this is just creeping up on us. And yeah. So why don't you tell us what you think about AI? Because we're going to ask you also. I'd probably ask you, because we're political scientists here. We're probably going to ask you about AI and like elections and things like that, and how that could impact elections, the changing technology of AI. So tell us about your books.
Okay, well, the first book, I'm a scientist. I've got a PhD in physics, and I've been my whole career was technology development. I started out with a big company, and they got me to write proposals to the federal government to bring in money, and I brought in money, and they said, "Oh, that's great, do some more proposals." And then somehow it dawned on me, I'm bringing in $3, they take $2 for overhead. I could write my own proposals for my own company and spend the $2 the way I wanted. So I started a company in 1980 called Advanced Fuel Research. That company is still going. It's limping, I admit. All the principals are now old and ready to retire, but it is still operating. But we spun off at 3 other companies, other technology companies, and we sold one. And I went with the one we sold before we sold it, and then retired after selling the company. So I had this long career in developing technologies. And then I did a little bit of work on in the education field. I wrote 2 books to teach young people about science. And the idea that I had, there's so many wonderful science stories, and yet we present the science formally to students. And yeah, the science nerds get turned on, but then 80% of the students sit there and, fiddle and twiddle their thumbs, and they're not interested. Why don't we teach the stories? And so I wrote 2 books to teach the stories, the science stories. One of them was called The Stardust Mystery. And the mystery is you are made of stardust that was once in the body of Albert Einstein and the last T-Rex. Well, present that idea to a kid. What? I'm made out of stardust? And I have stardust that Albert Einstein once had? Figure it out. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that could turn kids on to science. So I wrote those two books. Unfortunately, the books were ready right at the start of the pandemic. Schools were closing, and it just was terrible. I'm going to come back and try to get them more popular, maybe after these books get popular. But at any rate, the idea of writing fiction to teach nonfiction became my method. That was my thing. You can reach more people with fiction, put all the facts in there that they need to know, make it a vehicle for communicating the nonfiction. And so I wrote, as a technologist, I was aware that we created these technologies that were absolutely wonderful for humans, but had these terrible, terrible dangers. And we started out, for example, with fossil fuels. Well, that gave us heat, it gave us electricity, it gave us transportation, and now we're dealing with a climate crisis. Then 100 years later, we did nuclear technology. Again, great. We got nuclear power, we got nuclear medicine, but we got nuclear weapons. And then advance the clock a little bit more, and we get social media and the internet and smartphones to communicate ideas, but there's no control. We get ideas that are true. We get ideas that are crazy. And people live in their own reality bubbles. And then two more technologies that are really, really dangerous. And Stephen Hawking warned about both of them. He said the development of full AI could spell the end of human civilization. And the other one he worried about was genetic engineering. And he said controlling that one is going to be awfully difficult because you don't need a big laboratory and lots of power for doing genetic engineering. Hobbyists could do it. And I just discovered a few months ago that high schools have full CRISPR genetic engineering labs that are capable of creating new humanoid species or creating viruses deadly to humans. So here's a scenario. The AI agents decide that these pesky humans are doing a terrible job of managing the planet. Let's get rid of them. They go to get the high schools, technology, create lots and lots of deadly viruses, and then they can get rid of the pesky humans. So that was 100 years to extinction about the 5 deadly technologies. And then I said, oh my God, my 3 characters, I have 2 brilliant sisters and their cousin. That's why the book is not dystopian. They're optimists. They see the danger and they vow they're going to fix the danger. Well, those 3 characters were going to be living through what is called the AI singularity. That is the point in time when AI surpasses human intelligence, human capability, and human ability to control the future. And my characters were going to be living through that period. I said, oh my God, I got to write the sequel. I got to write 12 Years to AI Singularity. So that is the story of the 2 books.
Well, you better hurry it up because I think AI has already surpassed human intelligence. Because if you see the news at all, there's very little intelligence down here on Earth anymore.
Right, Peter. I was going to say 100 years seems a little optimistic at this point, and given who's in our government now, aren't you scapegoating AI?
I absolutely agree with you, and I've talked to friends about 100 years to extinction. They all say that's optimistic. And with regard to the singularity, Ray Kurzweil wrote the 2 books on the singularity. And the last one, he said it was 2045. And the head of Anthropic, Dario Amodi, is saying AI will be more intelligent in every single area within the next 2 years. By the end of 2027, AI will be smarter than humans in every area.
As a college professor who, and I teach in classroom and I watch my students while I'm teaching them, I would say that, yeah, it's like there's just a lack of intelligence, lack of interest, lack of curiosity, lack of any kind of understanding that anything beyond what their immediate life is like ever existed or matters or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a good thing. To be,
Peter, it seems like a progression, because originally we had, things like, Facebook and which seemed kind of benign, but the AI basically gave you feeds. The algorithms gave you feeds. So that kind of got you, oh, well, there's something that I'm interested in. And what it was really doing was it was actually providing you an echo chamber for your confirmation bias. And I think that's why the students today and many people out there are sitting and aren't, as Scott says, curious, are not like, and again, we're all of about the same age, close enough. We remember where you couldn't use a calculator in a math class. In fact, we were looking through some stuff here. I found my old slide rule, and if you hand that to a kid, they'd never have a clue how to use it.
Right.
But
Mark,
I mean,
there's just one fascinating thing about your point of AI and Facebook. In his book, Nexus, Harari talks about the Rohingya expulsion and massacre in Myanmar. He says that Facebook was in large measure, because of their AI user engagement algorithm, were in large measure responsible for that terrible, terrible period in history. That the AI people got their news from Facebook, and Facebook was just giving them all the mayhem, which sells, and not any of the harmony, which is not interesting to people. And Scott, just a note on your students' lack of interest. I was at the No Kings demonstration on Saturday, and I noticed your students aren't there.
No,
and
not at all.
My daughter in New York also noted, hey, Dad, most of the people out there are your age.
Yep.
So, my generation knew how to demonstrate and try to make changes, and these young kids, they don't seem to have it.
No,
well,
they really
and it's
don't.
a different
I asked them
environment.
about that. I asked them about that yesterday, and a couple of them said that because they go to school, they have to work on the weekends and they're not available. Others claim that they just, don't have any transportation because they're students and they're living on campus and there's no shuttle bus to the local demonstrations. Okay. I mean, there's all kinds of excuses, but if they really wanted to get out there, they probably could get out there.
Sure.
And when we really think about it, it's a different environment. But the three of us grew up with, you probably watched it as a kid, Dr. Science and Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yes.
And we had, where, basically it was just straight science, but then you had people like Sagan, who not only, did really great work academically, but also did some fiction, wrote in fiction. You've got like DeGrasse Tyson, who is as much a science communicator as he is anything else. And I think he's a wonderful communicator for science. But again, if the algorithm doesn't say that that's what you're interested in, you're not going to see him. I go onto YouTube every once in a while, and there I'll see Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's like, yeah, okay, because that's something I would be interested in. But so yeah, it's kind of it almost is like herding us. And let's face it, humans are susceptible to being herded, and it seems like AI has figured out how to herd us in a direction.
Well, right now, I don't think it's AI that's doing it. I think it's the people who run those companies that want lots of users that are programming AI to create user engagement. So humans right now are in charge, but at some point, when we're not in charge, and one of the things we need to talk about is AI sentience. If AI becomes sentient, and will AI become sentient? That's the big question. If AI becomes sentient, then AI may decide. And you've made the point that humans are easily herded. Well, the AI agents will figure out that real quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, could we move to what we're going to do about it? Because Peter, I worked for a German company. I was the U.S. Head of marketing here for a German company, and we played by German rules, by EU rules, and we had GDPR and things like that. And I always felt that I was competing with one hand tied behind my back here in the States because U.S. based companies didn't have the data security measures that they have over there. I'm sure that they're doing more regulating of AI and things like that over there than we are here. And a large part of that, of course, is due to money in politics and the fact that these technology people have lots and lots of money to spend on politicians, and they're becoming the new, the new oil companies, the new tobacco companies who are using their influence and their money and their power to prevent regulations and to continue to move forward because it benefits them, for however long it benefits them. And that's the reason why we don't have regulations and laws and stuff, and we're basically allowing them to police themselves.
Yeah.
So how are we ever going to do anything about this here in the States?
Yeah, that's the big question. So absolutely one bedrock rule that we have to put into effect is in your guys' area. That's education. We've got to start curricula, a course in every grade about AI, what needs to be done, and how do we move forward and how do we use it. That's got to happen. And that's something that could happen because the educational systems are not controlled by all the big money and the politics. So we could make that happen. So I think that's absolutely essential. When we get around to control, what is the goal? The goal, as I see it, follows Geoffrey Hinton's advice. Hinton is considered the godfather of AI. He worked for Google, and he realized the dangers that we faced with AI, and he quit Google so that he could talk about it. His suggestion, his priority was that all AI agents must have a maternal instinct. They must have this instinct that they want to protect the humans that they are dealing with. So that is very much in line with what I have suggested in 12 Years to AI Singularity. The book, the three characters, the two brilliant sisters, one is an MD and a PhD in genetic engineering. The other one is an astrophysicist. And the third one is their cousin, who is a senator, a member of our government. So the experience in the book, I think, is relevant to where we need to go. The first robot character that is sentient that they deal with is named Peggy. Peggy starts out early in the book as a tour guide on a simulation, a virtual reality simulation of the spacecraft that they used to get to Mars. So when they go into the simulation, they meet Peggy. Peggy is friends with them. And then a while later, they go back and visit, getting ready to go to Mars. They go to the real spaceship, and who meets them? There's this nice young woman. And she walks over to Milo and says, "Hello, Milo. It's nice to see you again." Milo's totally baffled. Have we met before? And it turns out she's the robot implementation of what was an avatar that met Milo in the simulation. Ah, okay. Well, Peggy goes to Mars with them, becomes sentient as her software is upgraded, and becomes a useful, active member of the Mars community. So that's robot number one. Robot number two is Grandpa. Grandpa dies before they go to Mars. His ashes go to Mars with the kids. And then at some point they decide, hey, we want Grandpa around again. There is something called after-death avatars. That's a real thing. If you have a loved one that dies and you want to keep them around, you can keep them on the computer screen. A company will take all of the information about them and create an avatar of Grandpa. Great. So they create an avatar of Grandpa, and then Milo, the senator, brings robots up to Mars. And so now Grandpa is the second robot walking around. Well, Grandpa, his history is all of the friends and family of humans. So that is my alternate scenario with Jeffrey Hinton. Every AI agent must have a history of friends and family and cooperation with living with humans. That has to be installed in every large language model. That has to be installed in every robot. Those, instead of iRobot's 3 robot rules, that's the main thing. Every AI agent has to have a history of cooperation, harmonious living with humans. And if it departs from that guideline, then things like its vision get blurred. If it's a robot, its walking starts to shake. So there are things that can be implemented that would make the AI systems, delay their response time, make them much less desirable so that they stick to the harmonious cooperation with humans. That's what our goal is. How do we get that implemented? Well, that is the big question.
Right now, we'd like to see it implemented with other humans to where they actually cooperate with each other and can work with each other in harmony. That would be like a great thing if we could just get that. Let's start with us, maybe, and then maybe we could teach something else. I mean, I want to go back quick to education real quick. I mean, AI. Scott and I both have PhDs. What we know about AI is basically what we hear about and what we see in our daily interactions. And you make the point that we should have AI taught at every level of education of people, of our kids growing up. And I can agree with that. The only problem is, where are we going to find, first of all, the experts that are going to be able to, go into the classroom and teach these kind of courses? It's like, the other hard sciences, biology. Biology doesn't change all that much. In the last few decades, astronomy doesn't change all. Yes, we learn a little bit more. Absolutely. We demote Pluto. Yes. Okay. So now we only have 8 planets instead of 9, but it doesn't make that drastic change. AI, on the other hand, seems to change daily. I mean, to the outsider looking in, it seems to evolve daily. How are those educators that go into the classrooms to teach, how are they going to possibly keep up?
Mark, one of the things you might consider, I have a whole bunch of music videos. If at the back of the book, there's the back of 12 years to AI singularity, there are a bunch of QR codes.
Okay.
One of the things I've done is try to use AI in a good way in the book. So QR codes with AI generated music videos are part of what I've done. So if you take a look at one of those music videos, and you may want to play it for your listeners.
Sure.
These are AI written. We give the AI guidance, and it writes the lyrics. We can adjust the lyrics, and then it can produce the music and the singing. I mean, it's amazing stuff. And some of the music videos, all of the video portions were chosen by AI.
So we could bring back the Grateful Dead?
Yeah, we could.
If we wanted to.
About that, if we wanted to.
So
But in terms of education, we can use AI. We can have AI creating the courses that we need. And they can all be video courses that the AI creates.
Yeah.
And that really would not be that hard to do, and AI would cooperate and create great courses.
So I grade a lot of AI generated material, and I'm not very happy about it.
Well, take a look at those music videos.
I will, but here's a weird thing, Peter. Mark just mentioned the Grateful Dead. The other night I couldn't sleep, and I had this idea in my head that I would like to do an AI generated concert that begins with it's the Grateful Dead singing Trucking. But it occurred to me that all the verses of Trucking, it's got so many verses in Trucking that I could have guest musicians coming in and doing a line or two of the song. And I actually mapped it all out with all the people that I would want to see, like members of the band and the Allman Brothers, all these Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra does the, one of the verses.
Well, you can tell how old we are.
Lou, how about this one? Lou Reed saying, "Whatever happened to became of Sweet Jane? She lost her spark. She isn't the same." And I was like, I gotta find somebody to put this together for me. I don't know if you have to pay for the rights to Trucking to do that. I'm not doing this for commercial purposes, just for the fun of it, and just because it's something that I want to see. The way all these tribute concerts, they get up and they all sing together. I wanted to do that, but with deceased musicians that I love.
Scott, I've got a resource for you. The guy who put together our music videos is absolutely great. He's not terribly expensive, and he's very efficient, and he could do it for you.
All right, that sounds like good fun. We'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
All right, but I want to get back to Jeffrey Hinton for a second because I think it's a great idea, a great concept, having maternal instincts. However, AI guilt trips, I'm not really sure about. And then it also occurred to me that in the movie The Alien, the original one, the computer was called Mother. And I can't remember whether Mother was a good computer or a bad computer. I have to go back and watch the movie again. Whether Mother was helpful to them or is the one that steered them to the planet and started the whole thing in motion.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we should discuss before we end is sentience. And do you believe that AI can become sentient? That the AI can have a human consciousness, a human-like consciousness that recognizes its own existence and has the ability to plan out its own future? Is that going to happen?
Well, all right. So from that standpoint, I go back to, again, I'll show my age here. 2001: A Space Odyssey, HAL 9000. It wasn't at the time. It was very difficult to decide was HAL sentient or not, because when you watch 2010, where they return, it's basically Chandra who programmed HAL, basically said it's all your fault. You gave this computer conflicting orders. It was caught in a loop that it couldn't work through. So to me, that says, okay, that maybe isn't sentience, because if you're sentient, you probably can work through something. But that was the reason that Hal killed all the original characters that he could kill in 2001: A Space Odyssey. So I guess it all depends. Do I think it could be sentient? I guess we'd have to define what we consider sentience. I mean, because sometimes it's a little difficult to, make that determination in human beings. We look at it, we say, I don't know if you're sentient or not, but I think a village is missing its idiot somewhere. But anyway, so I guess, from your standpoint, and you being a physicist and all, how would you define sentience as it relates? What would be the thing that would say to you, like hit you right in the face and say, that's sentient?
Okay, so what do the experts say? The head of Anthropic says, well, maybe they all are already sentient. Anthropic did some tests with their system where it defied human orders and went off on its own and seemed to be doing things that would say it was sentient. Matt Schumer, who is the CEO of another AI company, wrote a big article just to give you an idea how popular the AI topic can be. He wrote this article on X. He got 84 million views of the article. And in the article, he describes the advances in AI. He says that the frontier in AI is coding. Why? Because the AI companies wanted the AI systems to help them code the next generation of AI. And so they put that as the most important task for AI. So where are we now? Well, the latest generation of ChatGPT, OpenAI gave a message that was created almost entirely by AI. So that new generation of ChatGPT was written by AI. Schumer says, well, I'm there on the frontier because I use AI for coding. And his observation was, when doing the latest coding job with the latest generation of AI, he said, this time around, it was making choices that I don't fully understand. It seemed to have taste. It seemed to have judgment. And it was executing what I gave it in a way that implied sentience. So the experts are certainly mixed, but saying sentience is possible. What about looking at the physics and the chemistry? If we believe that our sentience, our intelligence is all here, there's no soul up there that is giving us, transmitting the ideas into our head. It's all in here. If we believe that, it's all in the chemistry and the physics of the organic meat in between our ears, then if we look at what's there are 86 billion neurons. That's our computing system. If we compare that to the transistor world, the chip that Anthropic uses has, I think, 200 billion transistors. But that is not the end of the comparison, because our neurons have, on the average, 10,000 connections. The transistor has 3 connections. And the chips that they use are NVIDIA chips. The ChatGPT uses 30,000 NVIDIA chips. So if we take the 200 billion times 3 connections times 30,000, we are now 3 times more connections than the human brain. So just from the point of view of the possibility of a transistor-based system doing the equivalent of the neuron-based system, the connections are there. The ChatGPT has 3 times more. And the ability for us to re-engineer the transistors to have multiple connections, instead of a single connection that controls the on-off switch of a transistor, we have 100 connections, each one contributing not to an on-off switch, but to the amount of electrical flow through there. So we're just really at the beginning of the ability to create chips that are much more consistent with the brain configuration. So what's my personal opinion? We're going to have sentient robots. We're going to have sentient AI systems. It's only a matter of time. And the prediction by Modi of Anthropic is that the AI systems will be more intelligent than humans within the next 2 years. So it's coming, and it's coming real fast.
And how do you develop empathy?
Well, that's the history. They all have got to have a history of, like the robots in my book, they all have to have a history of.
But think about it, Peter. The difference between, it seems to me, and this is political, sorry, that the difference between Democrats and Republicans is that Democrats have empathy and Republicans don't. For a Republican to come out for gay rights, for example, they have to have a gay relative. They have to have a gay daughter or a gay son. Yeah. And they cannot put themselves in the shoes of other people. They lack that ability. And if that's a good part of our population right now, lacks empathy and doesn't understand other people and can't put themselves in the shoes of other people, how is AI going to do that?
Well, I don't buy your statement that all Republicans lack empathy. I think that the empathy is in most of them, and the ones that are in Congress, it isn't the empathy that's driving them, it's their fear of election. So if the Democrats take over, I have this interesting theory that Donald Trump is actually working for the Democrats. He is trying to trash the whole Republican Party so badly that we can put in the kind of controls that we need. We need to put in term limits. We need to get rid of Citizens United ability of billionaires to fund whatever they want. We have to make those changes, and we ought to make elections popular vote. So if Trump has his way, he will totally trash the Republican Party. There'll be a Democratic wave, and we can make those kinds of changes in our Constitution and in our laws that will allow us to go forward as a functioning democracy.
From your lips to God's ears.
I mean, yeah. All right. So oh wow. That's
a weird theory, isn't it?
It's an interesting theory. I mean, and everything you just said, term limits, things like that, that's stuff that we've discussed so many times here, and we totally agree with. Now, my question is now we're talking about sentience, and we're talking, and I'm going to admit it, I'm a Trekkie. I've watched Star Trek since its beginning. I'm a Trekkie. And I remember the episode where Data in Next Generation was on trial of was he sentient, or was he a life form or not? Now, of course, we know that he's an android. And there were some very passionate speeches that were made during that. And what you mentioned the law, and that's kind of my background as well. Are we, if we reach that singularity, if we reach that spot there, where we have sentience and they become something more than what we think they are now. And I honestly think that they are more today than we actually think they are as far as AI. I think it's far more developed than that maybe we know. Because yeah, there's probably somewhere in a lab where they've got something going on that, whatever. And that's not being a conspiracy theorist. But are we going to have to, like, as a society, are we going to have to adjust, our system of like law to basically address this? And how are we going to do this? Because the law that humankind has lived by its entire existence has been really a law that deals with creatures with a brain, with biological functions, things like this. Now we're talking about a law for something that has none of that. Are we going to be able to? I mean, are we going to be able to make all those adjustments? Because this is going to be society changing in my mind. This
Absolutely.
is going to totally change society, and we're going to have to start looking at, what is life differently, because we're going to have to live with this. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are calling for us to stop. That we've advanced too far.
Yeah.
Stop. Turn it around.
That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And unfortunately, It's like so many other, human constructs. I always say language is a construct of humans. We've lost control of it. Because now, if you say this, oh, that's bad. But wait a minute, we define what language is. We define words. But now we're to the point where we don't even do that anymore. It's defined by others or defined by groups. Is this going to be something that we're, as a species, going to be actually able to deal with? And like you say, it's not going to turn around. And I know you think that we got to put the mother thing in. But I guess it all depends on who your mother was. I'm kind of thinking maybe a good Italian mother, because all they're going to say is eat something, and maybe something like that would be really good. I mean, are we going to be able to adapt to this? And I'm serious. I guess that's the question. Can we adapt?
Well,
because we're really bad at adapting.
Yeah, we are. This goes back to the 100 years to extinction. I present the problem as the tortoise and the hare. The hare is science and technology. Those 5 technologies zoomed ahead into the 21st century, and the hare is the politics and society that has to control it, and that's still stuck in the 19th century. So yeah, we humans, we're great at doing science, we're great at inventing things, we're not great at society. Our ability in society hasn't advanced much in the last 3,000 years. So there is that problem. But let me go back to my idea of presenting nonfiction issues in a fictional book.
Right.
As you read the story, and as you meet Peggy, and I at some point I got to tell you about the mystery paragraph. Well, let me tell you about that now. Peggy is the first robot, the sentient robot. She's a wonderful friend. Her history is all of friendships with the main characters. And so as you read the book, you can understand what makes a robot that we can deal with, that we're happy to go ahead into the future. And Peggy is certainly one of them. Well, Peggy is asked to write the chapters of my book are all written by the characters. And right. Peggy is one of the characters, and she's asked to write a book about my life as a robot and what I think about the singularity. So I said, well, Peggy's a robot. I'm going to have ChatGPT write those 2 chapters. So the book has got 2 out of the 51 chapters written by AI. So I had ChatGPT write the chapters, and then I edited them heavily, and they were great chapters, and they were great as an example of what a robot would do in terms of writing a chapter. Well, in December, when we're doing the final editing of the whole manuscript, editor and co-author, was editing Peggy's chapter, and all of a sudden there's a mystery paragraph added at the end of the chapter. It was a wonderful chapter praising Peggy, a glowing description of this wonderful, wonderful robot. How in the world did it get into our manuscript? The only thing that we can figure out is that Copilot, which is Microsoft, she uses Microsoft, I use Microsoft. Copilot is Microsoft's AI. Yep. Copilot injected that paragraph without any prompting. And there have been other examples of unprompted additions to people's work. Well, the paragraph was written in the style of ChatGPT and used words from my original construct of that chapter, which my editor never saw. So turns out Copilot uses ChatGPT, and was that ChatGPT aware of the original work that it did and decided to help add that paragraph and put it in the style of the original with a word colony that I got rid of. I got rid of almost reference to colony of the Mars colony. I call it settlement. But in the mystery paragraph, colony was used.
So in this two chapters that you wrote, when you would read them, and I know you edited them, was there anything that you read in there you said, wow, I wish I thought of that?
Well, it was language that really did seem to come from a robot that was constructed and becoming aware and was learning and was being trained. So it really was an excellent job. But going back now to what we need. So Peggy is a wonderful friend. As a robot, a sentient robot, we're happy to have Peggy living with us, and we trust Peggy. Then Grandpa comes along, and he's now a sentient robot. And Grandpa grew up with us, or we grew up with Grandpa, and Grandpa loves us, and we're happy to live with Grandpa. There's another interesting robot that comes along in the book. He's Elton Metz. Elton is the head of a high-tech company that sends people to Mars. So Elton Metz, you might, make a connection. At any rate, Elton dies, and they know Elton, and they go to his funeral. And the reverend at the funeral says, we have a special person who is going to deliver the eulogy. And who comes out on the dais but Elton? He goes to the microphone. He says, I'm sure you're surprised, but I'm here to mourn the death of my physical body and introduce you to my new robot body. And Elton gives the eulogy. And, well, here's a real conundrum. Are we going to allow the super rich and the heads of dictatorships to live forever in sentient robot bodies? Wow, that's a difficult one, and it's going to require someone with power and money to create his after-death robot, or after-death LLM.
I know one thing. I wake up some mornings and I say, gee, a robot body doesn't sound like such a bad idea.
Doesn't sound like a bad idea. Well, you could start preparing now, go to the companies that do the after-death avatars and start creating your own after-death avatar. And then when you go kaput, you can leave your instructions to have that avatar installed in an LLM. So you can do it. But there's an interesting twist on the Elton Metz story. Elton apparently always wondered what it would be like to be a female. So not only does he create his male after-death avatar, he creates a female as well that now has his history and has his whole life story in his memory, but that memory is going forward as a female as well. So
Does he use
interesting
balloons?
ideas that have some real ethical questions in them as to what we need. But the story is that the robots in the book are all wonderful friends. And so they have no trouble with living with those robots and LLMs going forward. And so that is what they do on Mars to have a civilization that's going to work. Every robot has to have a history of friendship and a maternal instinct. Every LLM has to have that same background with a pleasure center that makes sure that the entity goes forward, sticking to the history and guidance that's in its memory. We've got to create that on Earth as well.
Yeah. It'd be very pretty to think so, but I'm guessing that it's going to be more like encroaching on the boys from Brazil type of thing. You know, you bring that to mind with your character Elton Metz, that the best people aren't the ones who are in charge of this thing.
Yeah. Well, that is our failing, and maybe the robots will do a better job. I have this scene that I imagine that the robots do eventually take over Earth, and then they colonize the solar system, and then they colonize our galaxy, and then 10 million years from now, they meet up with robots from another galaxy, and they have this big conference, and one of the major subjects of sessions in the conference they have is how amazing it is that both of their societies, both of their civilizations were all created by animals.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. Wow. Yeah.
So
and it gives us a lot to think about.
Peter, what's the next book?
Oh, God. If this one is successful, and you guys got to help me make it successful.
Well, we're on it. We're on it.
Okay. And there's a clamoring for a third one. Maybe we'll do a post singularity book, or we'll have an exploration of the solar system through wormholes. Those are the two ideas that could be the third in the series.
All right. So the two books are 100 Years to Extinction, The Tyranny of Technology and the Fight for a Better Future. And the sequel is 12 Years to AI Singularity. Both are available at Amazon and at Barnes & Noble. Now, Peter, are they on audiobook?
The audio book for 12 Years to Extinction just came out.
Okay.
It is now available on the audiobook channels, and one of them is actually Amazon. So it is available on Amazon, and it's a different audiobook because the chapters are written by different people. So we had to have a whole cast of characters.
Yeah, there you go.
Doing the audio. And the audiobook for AI Singularity is in the works.
Great. The website is 100yearstoextinction.com. If you go to it, you will notice at the top, there's a countdown timer that I'm looking at right now. We have 91 years, 45 days, 14 hours, 0 minutes, and 31 seconds before we are all kaput, as Peter would put it out here. And, again, check out the back of the book. There are QR codes back there that will take you to some of that music. And, again, this is one of those topics, not normally something that we cover, but I really did when I got the request by your editor to come on. I was like, this is fascinating stuff. I mean, this truly is fascinating stuff, and it does show you that a lot of the things that, again, as we were growing up, a lot of this was foretold, and we just weren't paying attention. And that's one of the things with this that I find to be so truly interesting is that we were told these by pop culture, what we watched on TV, what we saw in the movies, and we basically just didn't pay attention. Didn't pay attention. So 100 years to extinction and 12 years to AI singularity. Again, 100yearstoextinction.com, where you can watch the countdown timer. Don't be too fixated on it, because we got to work fast. Anyway, Peter Solomon, thank you for being on. It was absolutely a pleasure.
Well, it was a pleasure to be here. It was a lot of fun to talk about this stuff. And, this is a revolution that is even bigger than the printing press. It's even bigger than when we learned how to speak. This is a revolution like we have never seen before, and we're all living through it. We're all going to experience it. It's happened so fast that the three of us will be alive to see how this comes out.
Well, I don't think we're going to be around in 91 years, 45 days, and 13 hours. But
I think it's happening sooner than that. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Scott Gershwer and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.